Welcome to Brightly, You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we share soul driven advice and topics to help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and passions, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself, inch by inch.
Yay, love it. I love it. I love it.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Tracy.
So, in our intro, in our name, we are called Brightly, right? We picked it.
Yes.
We strive to be our brightest selves, but as we just talked about in our dreams episode, and I hope it comes across in many of our episodes, it's not perfect, and we're not here to be your gurus or anything like that. But
No.
living, shining your brightest is a very individual thing, right?
Yes.
So what is that like to you? Do you feel like you've been shining your brightest lately? Or when you hear our intro and when you think about what we're trying to do with the show, what does being your brightest mean to you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'm going to answer this in two parts. Have I been shining my brightest lately? I don't know because I'm not sure that I've been asking. I feel like just you asking me that question now, tomorrow I'll say, how can I shine my brightest today? Like literally, I'll do that for
That's so
myself.
beautiful.
But I don't know that I've been thinking about that. But also, I think I have been shining brightly, maybe not my brightest, but shining brightly. I like to shine brightly for other people
Yeah.
to help them lift up.
So I like that you brought up, I don't know that I've thought about it.
Yeah.
So how everybody thinks of themselves all the time. Like if we get lost in thought, we're, in a conversation, in a meeting, or mind drafts, we all think, and get lost in our own thoughts. But how much do you actually think of yourself in terms of self?
Okay. Wow. Okay.
I'm glad that made sense to you.
No, it did. It made perfect sense to me because I'm going to share something from the time, as far back as I can remember when I was a little kid. I can remember being deep in play and then all of a sudden being like, this is me. I'm actually in this body doing this thing. I don't know if that's like an existential experience, but I feel like I had them continuously. And I don't know that I have them quite so much now because I feel like I'm more connected to myself. I'm more grounded. But I literally can remember that feeling of just it's almost like a hard stop and being like, do other people think this? Do they realize that this is me? This is me in this body, and I'm crying, and I'm me, and I'm sad. And that's it was so weird. So
I tend to have those moments when I drive and I'm stopped at a very busy intersection and just see all the individual people in their cars also driving, right?
Yes.
And just have this moment of just feeling like the smallest, tiniest speck in this hugest, wildest ocean. And are they even aware that I'm here? And it just takes you out of that day-to-dayness of just I'm the main character, right? And I'm going to work and everybody's in my way and I need to get there first.
That happens to me too at stop signs.
All the time.
It happens to me all the time where I'm like, they have a life. They have a whole life and they are their main character.
They're their main character. They have a whole life. I just got chills and goosebumps when you said that, even though it's the most basic of things, right? Is being able to identify, not that I don't think of other people, but just that really calm realization that I am here. I'm doing this thing. I have a whole life. I have myself. And now here goes 132 cars down the freeway with me of people also with whole lives. And what are they doing today? And what are they thinking about?
Yeah.
So, for me, when it comes to thinking in terms of myself being my best or my brightest, I keep going back to that saying of you don't have to be the best, you just have to do your best, and how when I first heard that, I hit up against it like a brick wall. No, I
Why?
do have to be the best. And
Oh,
I don't lose, and I do achieve this and I do achieve that. But then also having to recognize that having that mind frame stopped me from taking risks and chances when I knew I wouldn't be the best, right? You play it safe. It's that little fish in a big pond kind of it, or big fish in
yeah.
a little pond,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Versus taking that risk and being the little fish in a big pond. So like that concept of I don't have to be the best, but I do have to show up and do my best. And I mean, this was like early 30s when I was like, you have to break through this barrier if you're going to be happy in life, if you're not going to
Yeah.
stress out, if you're not always going to compare to other people. And so it's really hard for me to say whether or not I am being my best because I'm still constantly in my head being like, well, you're not the best.
Okay, that's super interesting because for me, it's hard for me to think about being my best because I think, is it my best though?
I have that
Is
too.
it my tomorrow best? I don't know. But the first time I was struck with this thought, I wasn't struck with it. Someone else said it. Sheryl Crow actually said it about her guitar playing. And
Okay.
she said, I'm not the best guitar player, but I'm the best. How did she put it? I'm the best guitar player who's me. Like
Yeah.
something like that. Like I am doing my best. No one else is me. So no one else plays guitar like I play guitar.
Yeah. She's bringing that je ne sais quoi to it. She's bringing
Right. But
her.
even like, so that was the first time I was like, oh, I might even be doing something that someone else is doing, but they're not me doing it.
Yeah. And so, so it sounds like you equate being your best self with what effort are you putting into you being
Yes.
you today, right? Whether
Yes.
it's a task or just the you-ness of you. I'm sure that's a
Okay.
Dr. Seuss quote.
Yeah. I guess I don't think of the you-ness of me as far as that, but I think of the task part.
The task part. And
Yes.
I'm thinking more about like, what is the self? And we're not a philosophical podcast. But what I have learned when kind of diving into it, I'm not gonna like start talking about Kant or Kierkegaard or anything like that. I probably didn't say their names right, but self is to me an awareness that you have a consciousness, right? It's a
Right.
self-awareness, not to use the
Yeah.
word to define the word, but it's an awareness of not only how you others perceive you, but how you perceive yourself, and then kind of the freedom you have within that
Right.
to control that perception. But then it's also around decision making, that in order to be able to make a
Oh,
decision, you have to know who you are and kind of where you want to go, right? And then that also leads directly into future planning. So for me, being your best self, well, yes, I do get caught up in that task centered day-to-dayness of, how efficiently was I, could I
yeah.
measure these individual goals and actions I took today. Being your best self, your brightest self, is actually preparing for future you to have it easier, future you to have something else, right? Because otherwise, why be your best? Like, we do talk a lot about in relationship to others in the community and being there, but
Yeah.
when you're, to me, it's very future minded and planning for your best future when trying to figure out who your best self is.
Yeah, I've never thought of it like that. Even though I hear you talking, like I love it when you talk about past Tracy and today Tracy and tomorrow Tracy. Like I love it when you do that, but I've never actually connected that. It makes perfect sense, but I've never connected being your best self is planning for your future self. Like that makes perfect
So
sense.
my absolute favorite quote that I go to all the time is, be kind to the person you will be tomorrow.
Yes, I've heard that from you. I love
And
that
sometimes
quote.
it's as simple as just being like, tomorrow you, or even 3 hours from now you, doesn't want to do this task either. They don't want to take out the trash or do the dishes or whatever. You're not going to want to do it in the future. Just do it
Yeah.
now, right?
Sometimes I'm being kinder to the me that's a half an hour from now.
Yes. But then also, at its core, be kind to the person you are tomorrow is recognizing that those individual teeny tiny decisions and actions that we make on a day to day compound to a better future, even further than we can see, right? So it's not even necessarily just tomorrow you, but the future tomorrows of you. But so I So for me, that going back to that quote of, you know, you can't always be the best, but be your best. It
Yeah.
also really helped me recognize, I have some chronic pain issues and some other stuff that I go through that's more kind of cyclical. So it's not all the time, but it's a very specific time every month. And so when I go through that, my best looks different, and by acknowledging that I don't have to
Mm,
be the best, I just have to do my best, it took such a weight off of me to change what that definition of best was and will look like, depending on what else is
yeah.
going on in my life, in my body, heart, soul, mind, all that kind of stuff.
So past Amy really wishes she would have talked to today Tracy to find out about this, because when when past Amy was going through things, and I mean long, long ago,
Yeah,
past Amy, 30s past Amy, that would have taken a load off.
right.
That your best self can look different on different days.
And it's gonna look different on different people. And
Yeah. Ooh, you know what, Tracy? Because I think sometimes I might think about my best self and try and be like, why aren't you your best self? And maybe they are their best self. And I'm projecting what I consider my best self onto them.
yeah, you're creating expectations that aren't
Yeah.
fair of other people. So
Yeah.
that will help. We always talk about, trying to give others grace. And so I think
Hmm.
it goes back to, what's that quote, like, everybody's fighting a hard battle that you don't, we
Hmm.
all have our own burdens. When you go back to what we were just talking about, that there are all these people living their whole lives around you. They're not just that person in line annoying you, right? They have an entire life and something happened to them to make them annoying that day.
So, so when you're thinking about like, do you actually, I know that you must do this, but I'm just going to ask the question. So do you actually plan for your future self? Like, are you every day, are you thinking about ways that you're planning for your future self?
So just the nature of who I am, and I've had astrologers tell me they're not surprised based on the stars in my chart. I don't like to go more than a year out, and it's just because I know I'll commit, and I don't want to end up on a path that I like to be more flexible and adaptable than that. But I
Mm-hmm.
also at the same time know that, like, if I want a certain career goal, I might have to join a 3-year school program, right? And so it's kind of like that type of planning. What's worked best for me is, in my early 30s, I went through a really bad depression and I let myself fall in the hole. I just gave up and I let myself fall in the hole of depression. And afterwards, I learned it would have been easier to, not fall in the hole, cling onto the side of the hole and, fight like hell and scratch and, really dig in. Then that would have been easier than trying to crawl out of the hole once I wasn't depressed anymore.
Oh,
And so now, um, how I plan for the future is just like, are you staying away from the hole? Like, at the bare minimum for future planning, like, are you doing enough self-care? Are you in love with your life enough? Are good things going on? Like, are you being wise enough with your finances that, like, how
hmm,
many paces from that hole are we? And so I know, so it'll look a little bit different for everybody based on their experiences. But as we just talked about dreams, and as almost all of our episodes kind of like talk about like this future us we want to achieve and this
yeah,
feeling state we want to be, I'm
yeah,
feeling really inspired to plan for my best future and figure out, where do I want to go? How do I want to get there? And then how am I going to invest in myself to get there?
yeah. So what does that look like, investing in yourself?
Well, unfortunately, it's a lot of really hard words like dedication, commitment, follow through, routine, habit, self-control. Not any of my strengths are in that list, Amy.
Well, now wait, can't we get, like, speaking of the previous episode, the dreams, is there any way you can get playful with any of
Yeah,
those?
within all of that, there should be fun and it should be around your dream and all that. But investing in yourself is sometimes, doing the work. So like, how investing in yourself is about how do you treat yourself. And so sometimes that whole mantra from Parks and Rec of
Oh.
treat yourself is needed, and it's you do need those rewards and that break so you'll burn out. And other times it's really dangerous to just be like, oh, I'm going to treat myself, and not notice how it's holding you back, or at least not moving you
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. I treated myself right into I was worth it, right into like $35,000 in debt. So it can be
It
very
adds up,
dangerous.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how about you? Do you plan for your best future? Do you know where you want to go?
I mean, I think I do, as because this really ties in well with the last
Yeah,
episode, the
imagine
dreams.
that.
So, but yeah, but I don't think that I've tied it yet with like my best self combined with like how do I view my best self in the future, right? So
Mhm.
I feel like no, I don't think I've done that. So I'm super excited to try that.
So where I'm having fun with it right now is in the defining what is the best Tracy? What
Yeah.
is she?
And how are you doing that? Like, how do you define your best?
Well,
How do you even start with that?
so, well, first of all, let's go back a second. So when we talk about best self, and especially in, kind of American culture and the Instagram culture and all that kind of stuff that we have out there, when you're looking at like, oh, I need to be, or I want to be my best self, you have to differentiate between, am I trying to correct a perceived deficit or be something I'm not?
Aha.
It can't start from there. You can't
Right.
start from lack. You can't hate yourself into happiness, right? Like,
Oh,
so you
okay.
can't.
Please, everyone, hear that. You cannot hate yourself into happiness. I love that so
And
much.
so being your best self is about being you. It's your glorious strengths. It's about being
Your
you.
weirdness, your
Just all the best parts of you, right? Like, and so to me, like, is it like, oh, I need to be like so and so, or oh, I'm so lazy, or I'm this, or it's I'm really striving to be something I want to be, or I'm striving to bring something into the world, and this is the part of me that has to come out to do it. And so for me, it's just doing more like self-reflection and getting to know you stuff, kind of like you were
yeah,
taking your dreams on dates. Like, I'm gonna take myself on a date. Like,
I love it.
who am I?
Okay, so I have another question. So this is who, this is my dream, or this is who I want to be, and this is the part of me that is going to strive to be that, right? Is it a part of you that is maybe already like a talent or a strength of yours that you're going to like push out more
It could
towards it?
be. I mean, if
Okay.
you have that, it could be, right? Like,
Yeah.
but it could also be, I think I shared in the dream one, like, I want to be Lara Croft. Like, so it's about looking at what I already have
Amen,
and
sister.
capitalizing on that, while I then like look at the other skills and attributes I'd like to have and bring into the world, and how they'll relate to my life, and the fun I want to have and all that, and then make it
Yeah.
happen. I think the whole part of like being your best, or striving for your best, or like we say, like being your brightest, it's about the journey, right? Like, you're never really going to get there. I think that's the important thing to remember.
Yeah.
You're never going to achieve the best, because then you're, like it's just it's an escalator that doesn't stop.
Then
Like,
you're Laura Croft, and then what is there, right? Except, and I think too, it should be a good thing that you never get there, right? It should be something that you're always like, yep, and now I'm going to do this, or
and
my best self is this now, or
yeah, and it doesn't mean you're on like a road trip of, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And
right.
forever. Like,
Yeah.
the milestones. Like, I'll achieve Lara Croft, but then there'll be a new version of my best self that's like the Lara Croft of my 60s, whatever that icon is, like
Woo. Yeah.
it'll be Amy. But so it's about who you are along the way, right? So you're being you, and you're just trying to show up as the best version of you. And all, again, as with many of our episodes, all these episodes kind of lead up to that. So like, to be the best version of you, you have to know yourself, you have to be intentional, you have to be working on your goals, but then also you have to be kind to yourself, you have to be kind to others, right? Like,
Yeah.
so to I guess like what I was kind of going for with this episode is, it's like, do you have an inner compass, right? Like, where are you and where do you want to go?
This is this is really getting me to think, because I feel like with the things that you're talking about, it's not that it's completely revolutionary to me, However, some of the things that you said, I was like, wait, what? So
I'm
it's
gonna have to listen.
semi-revolutionary to me, but everything you're saying, for whatever reason, maybe it's just the way you're saying it. I'm like, do I have an inner compass? Like, who, like at my core, who am I and who am I striving to be? And so I feel like there's a part of me that's like, this, you have to do this, I think, before you do the episode before this.
Maybe. I mean, they can be done in tandem. It depends on what you
Yeah.
know and where you need to go.
Yeah.
Because, to kind of put it in corporate speak, this is about having like a strategic plan. Like, how can you
It
prioritize your
is.
dreams? How can you prioritize your life if you don't know where you are, who you are, and where you want to go with it, right? And how you're
Yeah.
going to get there.
What's your personal vision statement?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's so that is something that I have actually worked on before. And you and I did it for
The show.
the show, right? And I think that a bit of ourselves came out in the show vision statement. But it's funny because when I try and work on something for myself, I'm always like, but is that everything? But did I skip something? But is that actually what I want? But is it really this? Like, I think I question things
Yeah.
way too much. So, is there any way to get like past that and just say, just land on something?
Well, I mean, it comes back that, when the whole purpose of having that strategic plan and knowing your outcomes is to help you prioritize, right? So that when you are in a
Yeah.
relationship with too many dreams or when you're not sure what you should do, you
Mm-hmm.
know what to pick in the moment.
Yeah.
Um, so but I don't know, like with everything I've just been saying the whole episode, like I'm still so new to this. I don't know who the best version of me is or what I want it to
Yeah.
be. Like it's so open-ended, but I think that's what I like about it is you just have to keep trying, right? Like as long as you're dedicated to being the best you can, whatever version of that is, it could look different. Like that's why it's different than the goals and the dreams is it could be different day to
Mm-hmm.
day, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what's in front of you. It doesn't have to have like this end task of a goal, but just more so going back to what the brighten up episode. It kind of goes back to character too, like knowing the type of
Yeah.
character you want to have. But
Yeah.
it's more so around what standards are you holding yourself um, to be prepared for the future you want to create, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I am excited to dig into this, to actually, because I think that this is something that we just assume we know, like what our best self is and what we are, like who we want to be in the future, or maybe it's not, but I think I assumed I knew it, and I don't think I actually do.
Well, and it just makes me wonder, so like how did we even come to define what best is for ourselves, right?
Oh,
Because like
geez.
this how others perceive us, how we perceive us things. So I once had an employee I supervised who she made her decisions based on like she would say like you have really high standards and expectations. And at first I was a little nervous and because like that's not how I want to manage is around like these ill-defined standards and expectations, but she's like no, like you've outlined for me like we provide employee service, we do whatever we can to make sure we are helping the employees that we work with, right, in our
Mm-hmm.
area, that's our purpose here. And she's like so that is the standard in which I do my job. And so I was glad that she was able to understand like the standards and expectations and define them that I had. But then I
Mm-hmm.
was just started thinking about like my boss never told me that, right? Like how did I
How,
create what these
yeah,
expectations and standards are? Because to me, I was looking at the organization we've both served, and I held that in a certain regard. And to me, that's a certain level of work. And then that motivated me, like that gave me a certain level of responsibility. And nobody has
yeah.
ever outlined any of that out. And so
So,
how do we define best? Like maybe I should have started
right.
the episode with that. Like how are we picking what best means and how do you measure yourself up against that then this weird ill-defined qualitative thing you're
Exactly.
thinking.
And well, I am thinking because all of a sudden I said, I'm thinking about, are we the best judge of our best? Like I'm getting
And so we're So we typically are not. And so they've done
Okay.
like studies and stuff around like if they would ask you, are you a below average or an above average employee? Are you a below average or above average lover? It's 50-50, right? Like you're either above the line or you're below it. And most people rate themselves way better than they are. And then you
Well,
also have
yeah,
the
we're a
people
nation of
who,
narcissists, I think.
so it is like, how do you even define what average is when your experience is you, right?
Okay,
Like,
this is, oh my mind is just like
this is what my mind is thinking about all the time. This is probably why I don't achieve my goals, is I'm just too stuck in the like over analysis, overthinking.
well, no, I'm actually, the funny thing is I'm actually right there with you because I can get in that, and right now I'm in that analysis, like what is best,
Yeah,
like
analysis paralysis. Yeah.
right, exactly. And then I'm sorry, all I can think of is Melania Trump be best, her initiative of be best. Anyway, sorry about that, folks.
So for you, I mean, either what you've done in the past or what you think as you kind of kick this around, like how are
Mhm.
you going to define a word like best, or even a word that we use, brightest?
Yeah, I think that you have to have some kind of a starting point, right? So I think that you have to be self aware. You have to have some level of self awareness. And I think that if we are going to be open and honest with ourselves, we do know like this is a time when I was doing my best. And this is how it felt. And this is how it made other people feel if other people were involved. And I think that if we can be honest with ourselves, we can get to that definition or that feeling state of what your best actually is, or how you feel when you are doing your best.
And for me, I get it too tied up in productivity. So that when I
Oh,
think about it and when I rate myself, it's more, oh, I know I could have worked harder. I know I could have done more, produced more. But the more we've done this show, like we talk about, you bring your whole self to work. So like being my best is also allowing myself to be a good friend, right? Like
that's what I think of so much when I think of being my best is how am I treating other people? How am I how am I in how am I in relationship with other people?
and but then that's the other thing too, but then how do you couple that with still having focus on yourself and and being kind to yourself and being the
Right.
best to yourself, right? Like it's
Right.
just, we all have so many relationships and so many things we juggle, and then you start like individually rating these categories of your life, like am I the best spouse, am I the best friend, am I the best colleague, am I the best employee? And I'm just like,
I
well,
can't be best at everything.
it's too many. So instead, I'm just like, well, what is the best version of Tracy? Because I think, as you know, we go back to like the energy episode or the dreams episode. If you have
Mhm.
that baseline of like, this is how I show up in the world, then you have the energy to just naturally be your brightest to everybody, like you were saying,
Right.
in all
Right.
roles.
Your brightest.
Your
Yeah, I like that definition. Yeah.
But so then it also goes back to too, like and this is the one thing in our intro that I get worried about. Like it's okay to not always be striving, right? Like I don't ever want it to seem like you always have to be go go go, hustle hustle hustle.
Mhm.
Like it's okay to take steps back, it's okay to just maintain. You can be your best and be standing still.
You can. Yes. Agreed 100%. It's okay to take, yeah, to be standing still, to take steps back, to all those things. You sometimes you're just being.
Just being, just I love that,
Mhm.
we're just being. So you mentioned earlier, so we do have we're in different stages of our life, right? So we have an age gap between us.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I'm in my mid 30s right now. So
Mhm.
with that perspective of like experiencing your mid 30s to now, like what have you learned about being your best so far from like
I'm
30?
gonna like fall off my stool right now. I think that, okay. So, that's a really good question. And I think that when I consider my life, I always been my best? No, absolutely not. But the thing that I think I have always done is learned from not being my best and being willing to take responsibility for not being my best and possibly, if needed, apologize for not being my best self.
Mhm.
Um, but also, it's so, I don't know if I can get this in the right words. When I think about my best self in my 30s, like strive, 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 go, go, go. Um, so many expectations I put on myself and let myself down so many times, right? Let other people down so many times. And it's because I think I did not understand myself and what my best self could have been all on my own, but I was seeking outside
The
reassurance, outside validation for what my best self was. Um, and so now I feel that it's much more internal instead of external. I don't seek outside validation. Do I still enjoy getting it? Everybody enjoys getting
right.
validation, but I don't need it anymore. And I also don't expect anything in return from giving my best self, whether that's on a task. Like if I've given my best self to something, like say, all I can think of is like creativity. Like if I feel like I have given my best self to what I'm writing, and the next day I read it and it's crap, I'm not going to get down on myself. I'm going to be like, okay, what can I take from this? But also, if I've given my best self to the people around me and I get nothing in return, that does not speak. I do not, I
It's
don't
not a
feel
reflection
bad.
of you.
It is not a reflection of
Mhm.
me. And actually, it's not, I don't even take it as a reflection of them.
Right.
It's just a neutrality
Because you're very
type of
centered
thing.
in your who you are as yourself and you didn't have any expectations.
Right. And yet, I shared that, gee, who is my best self? But yet at the same time, I think that there must be something in me that's like, me, I'm your best self.
Well, and I think it's something you should be continuously checking in on, right? Because
Yeah.
it can change or it's just nice to kind of
Oh, absolutely. It has. And I think that sorry, I totally interrupted you, but I think that in exponentially it changes. And I've witnessed it over like even the last 5 years, I've witnessed a change. And I think it's a change in maturity as well.
I mean, when I think about my life, I don't know that I want to be the same person for the entirety of my life, right? Like different versions
Absolutely.
of me, but not the same exact.
Yes.
Like I would like to have that growth. And so I think when you're talking about like, oh, I haven't checked in with, who is the best version of me right now, like you've grown a lot, even just in the span of us doing our podcast, right? Like
Yeah.
you've had a lot of epiphanies and different ways you want to approach your life and your
Hmm.
relationships and your goals. And so you do
Yeah,
kind of
you're right.
checking in, right? Yeah.
Right.
I Yes, for me in my 30s, what it's been for me is recognizing like I don't have to feel bad when I'm not meeting my own high crazy standards, that I can still be being the best
Yeah.
version of me and not hitting that bar that I set for myself because it's such an arbitrary bar, right?
And
And
you
I think
said
that
it so high, Tracy.
I too. Um, and and also just acknowledging like there's a lot of things that I wish I could be the best at. Like my best will never be like I still 8-year-old Tracy is still in there and wants to be Simone Biles, man, but I do not think my knees or my back will ever let me. I'm one of those people that in gymnastics, when I'm running towards a vault, my body would freeze. Like I can't run as fast as I can at a stationary object. It's just not in me. And so there's like little
Yeah.
things like that, those little tiny deaths, the things you have to let go of where you're like, well, my
Yeah.
best is never gonna be, even in the realm of what I want it to be, right?
Mhm.
Like, and accepting who you are.
However, you can appreciate this other person's best.
Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
the, if you can't tell, Summer Olympics start tonight, the night we're
Yeah.
recording it. That's why it keeps coming up for me. But I don't know. And when I hit 30, I had that stereotypical, like, I suddenly don't care what other people think of me. And that it's not
Mhm.
that broad, but I thought about it a little too much, I think, before that. And that's why it just kind of
Oh.
faltered off. So I still care. Like, I want people to receive me well, or well enough. I don't
Mhm.
want to come off as brash or insensitive or rude, right? Those
Mhm.
would all be very intentional actions if I did.
Right. But I
And
think if you're coming across as your best self, it shouldn't matter then if somebody doesn't want to accept that.
exactly. And so for me right now, like, what is the best version of me is, it's going to look so different than it did 6 years ago, and it's going to look different in my 40s. And so it's just kind
Yeah.
of like, I don't know, I think it's kind of fun to think about, but then it's also overwhelming to be like, oh, here's more things to have to do. But instead, I think I just want to, like, look at my strengths and clear the path for those just to shine, right?
Oh, yeah, I like that.
I think it's about clearing out the stuff that I don't really need to be focusing on, that's taking my time,
And
energy,
energy. Yes.
and
Yes.
getting it out of the way, and then being okay with what's left, right? Like,
Yeah. More than okay with what's left because
yeah.
those are your strengths. I
So,
love that.
but when I pulled tarot cards, when I asked the universe, what card represents being your best self was one of the questions, and then what do we need to know about being our best self was the other question. So I did a 2 card pull.
Okay.
So, what card represents being your best self? And I got the Fool.
It's one of my favorite
Do you
cards.
want to describe it for those not on video?
So yeah, so the Fool is actually number 0 because the Fool moves throughout the entire major arcana.
He
So he
is
is
the
the
deck.
yes, he is the first card, and on this card he is very happy walking towards a cliff, about to step off of the cliff with his little white dog next to him, who's kind of frolicking next to him. We're not sure if the dog is trying to say, hey, look out, or just like, I'm right there with you, buddy. The Fool has kind of the knapsack, and it's like, this is all I need right here. And I have faith in everything that I'm going to take this step and I will be supported.
He's very confident. It's a bright and sunshiny card.
Yes.
But so it's all about, when it comes to what card represents being your best self. So I kind of boiled this down to be bold, be daring, be new.
I love it.
But it's about opportunities. So I think when you're your best self, you're more open to opportunities in life, and that can help you achieve your
Nice.
goals and dreams and be open to receiving. But
Yeah.
it's about tapping into your potential just as much as into what you know to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Trusting the universe, being a risk taker, being curious, and then just being inspired by new ideas. So
Yeah. And, I love that. Like I said, it's one of my favorite cards. And I think that that might help me sort of narrow in on what my best self could be if I think about the Fool card while I'm doing that. Anyways, and
yeah,
then what about the
yeah.
next question?
So it was, what do we need to know about being our best selves? And it got the
Okay.
devil.
Oh, geez.
And so, this isn't really meant to be satanic. Like, he's got horns. It's representative of the Capricorn energy in the zodiac.
Mhm.
But it's, do you want to
The
describe it?
interesting, yeah, one thing that I'm just going to point out, the interesting thing is that the two people in this picture who are sort of loosely chained to the block that the devil is seated on are sort of mimicking the card we got last time, the
Yes, the
lovers.
lovers.
Yeah, but so it's sort of in a bad way.
So, like you said, though, so like it's two people standing in front of the devil, and they look like they're chained, but they could fully take these chains
Yes.
off of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So this, to me, when it comes about what do we need to know about being about our bad selves, is your bad habits, your addictions, where you're stagnant, and where you're stuck. And sometimes knowing makes that analysis paralysis occur even more, right? But we're aware. And so it's just about, paying attention to the negative forces that are holding you back from being your best self, And then
Wow.
it's a choice. Am I gonna be accountable for them and take those baby steps or big steps, grand steps to get past it, remove those chains? Or am I just gonna accept where I am right now? Um,
Wow. Talk about perfect cards. That's amazing.
but so according to Biddy Tarot, when these two are together, it's about
Yeah.
short-term gain with long-term detriment. So
Ooh.
that whole treat yourself mantra we were talking about, where that can get you in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
If
Yep.
you're always rewarding yourself with a break or with a prize or with something without looking at the longer term impact
Right.
of it. Um,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know.
Amazing.
So I hope this inspired everybody to at least just kind of consider like their self and their
Yeah.
relation to their self and everything else we've ever
Well,
talked
it sure the heck inspired me.
about.
What's happening next time to
Oh my God,
inspire me?
it's my favorite time of the year. School supplies abound, planners galore, three-ring binders, Amy tabs, label makers.
I'm so excited.
So, if you're listening out of order, when this episode drops or will drop, will be early September, which in the States is when school typically starts. To me, this is the time of new beginnings. Like we like to say January 1st is, but so much of our life is based on the September through August calendar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I also tend to, I don't know why, I can't tell you the number of times I've started a new job in August, September. Like for me, and when you look at like the wheel of the year and the cycles of the year or whatever, like this is all kind of about endings and beginnings right now. But
Yeah. I swear every great adventure starts in the fall.
yeah.
Like I think The Hobbit started in the fall. Like I think every great adventure starts in the fall. That's just the way
Well,
I think.
I prefer to do a lot of my goal setting or my prep for the new year in the fall. I like to do it around this time of year just because I'm kind of inclined, even if you're not in school and it's been
Mm-hmm.
decades since you've been in school,
Well, and it is your solar return.
it is my solar return.
Yeah.
Plus also it's Virgo season. So if you do pay attention to the stars and the cosmos, we're kind of feeling that itch to get more organized,
Yeah.
whether physically or just mentally. But so we'll talk a little bit about strategizing your life and your routine for kind of an ultimate self-care contingency plan. And then just getting excited in general for life, as summer's kind of ending and so many people grieve that, and I don't think we need to. I think there's plenty to still get and be excited about. So yeah,
Ooh,
we're just talking about like newness.
wonderful. I'm excited. Cool. So, everyone, if this episode spoke to your soul, please share it with a friend. And if you have time, give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we hope you have a bright and beautiful day.